everybody? I hope you are having a wonderful Monday so far, and thank you for joining me for today's video. We have a lot to discuss today, including the threat of severe weather in the southeast, winter storm conditions into New England, and just maybe the chance of a bit of a surprise snow for some of us in the mid-Atlantic and areas closer to the I-95 corridor. So we're going to talk about all that in today's video. Some of those chances of snow maybe getting a little bit closer to the coastline are increasing for a lot of us from the DC area up through Philly and into New York. So we'll talk about that. Nothing set in stone, but a better chance today than you had yesterday for that. But before we get into all that, again, just want to say thank you for joining me. If you're new here, my name is Gerald. I am a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and here on my channel, I give you the forecast every day. So we're growing really quickly. I'd love for you to join us on this journey. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like the video and comment where you're watching from and what you want to see in the weeks ahead. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get right into it because we do have a lot to discuss. All right, looking at our satellite imagery today, again, pretty calm conditions here throughout the eastern half of the country, dealing with some rain yesterday and even some snow that we talked about that did end up falling into sections of the northern mid-Atlantic and even southern New England. But the big story today right now as a whole is this just non-stop moisture return continuing to the west coast, and they're really getting it good today in California. A ton of snow falling there in the Sierra Nevadas and rain even all the way down into LA. So a very active pattern out west, and that is going to create this storm system for us in the east later this week. So looking at our hazards again, all clear really here in the east. Most of those watches, warnings, and advisories are out west. Green indicating flash flood watches. These pink colors here in the Sierra Nevadas are winter storm warnings. And then kind of these brown, beige colors are wind advisories and wind warnings. And then these darker reds here are flash flood warnings. So if you have family out there, just make sure that you're keeping an eye out on them and keeping in contact, making sure everything is okay as the west continues to deal with these rounds of storms. All right, so go ahead and look at our models here for this system. So first, I'll run you through the whole system through this entire week with our models, and then we're going to break it down more in depth, talking about the severe weather in the south, and then talking about the snow in the northeast. And then we will touch on that long range pattern and see if maybe we can finally start to change up this weather that we have been dealing with. So we'll start with our GFS here like we normally do. Moving this ahead in time, just pay attention here to the East Coast, still very calm, still calm. And then once we finally get into about Wednesday night here is whenever the calm, quiet conditions will begin to break down for us here across the east, and we reintroduce some of that moisture throughout the area. So again, here on the GFS, see that storm getting going here into the southern plains. This is Wednesday night into Thursday. And then we'll bring this ahead into Thursday afternoon, and you can see this storm really begin to mature as it tracks up through the Ohio River Valley, producing a line of storms here throughout the southeast, and we'll talk about that threat of severe weather next. And then here on the GFS, even producing some snow here kind of on the back end of this storm as it is able to bring down enough cold air, although marginal, enough to produce that snow. Going into Thursday night, you see that system really begin to start to move up into Canada and produce some pretty heavy snow up there into Canada, but then really just rainy conditions here along the East Coast, stretching from the Gulf Coast up through the Mid-Atlantic, although snow ongoing here into sections of extreme northern New England, especially areas of northern Maine, Vermont, and even New Hampshire, having the best chance of seeing that thumping of snow on the front end of this, as you see here on the GFS. As we bring this into Friday, again, that thumping of snow most likely here into northern sections of Maine, and then up into Canada. They're going to get a pretty good storm out of this. But still, along our I-95 corridor here, ongoing rain, and even storms further to the south as you get into the Carolinas and Georgia. And then throughout the day Friday, that continues. Those areas that see snow, are going to continue here into northern Maine, maybe switching over to rain there. But most of the line of storms should begin to move off the coast, and we should just be left with some rain, at least temporarily, here along the I-95 corridor. Also during this time, going into Friday, that northwest flow is going to begin to pick up here from the Smokies up through West Virginia, and then some lake effect snow ongoing here into the Great Lakes throughout Michigan here on our latest GFS. And then watch here in the GFS what happens. This is what I mean whenever I say here in the Mid-Atlantic we potentially could get some snow that we may not have been originally expecting. Watch down here, you see we get this other low pressure to try to form and kind of ride up this front that is pushed through the area. So we'll watch that low pressure here. This is Friday afternoon here. Bringing this into Friday night, you see that low pressure tracking up the coast and beginning to deepen and strengthen. So what that is going to help to do is really enhance this northwest flow. As that low pressure is bringing winds down, that will really help to enhance that northwest flow, so maybe even more than we were originally thinking here throughout the mountains. But also, if that low pressure can crank up enough, look at this, potentially some, a heavy band of snow on the western side of this low pressure. So latest GFS here, if you're watching in a good section of New England, really from Connecticut through Vermont, maybe the chance of, a heavy band of snow. And again, this could shift this way, this could shift this way. But I do think if we do get this secondary low to form, somebody here in the Mid-Atlantic or Northeast will get this kind of last hurrah of the storm changing over to a quick heavy burst of snow. And then the GFS finally clears out the area going into our Saturday night. So that's our GFS model. Let's look at the European model with the same storm here. Again, calm conditions here through the beginning of the week. And I do want to mention we will be above average here temperature-wise the beginning of the week. So, expect 5 to 10 degrees above what you would expect before maybe Wednesday, more like 10 to 15 degrees, what you would expect this time of year throughout most of the eastern half of the country. Okay, again, though, looking at our storm here on our Euro model. Oops, sorry about that. I feel like I do that just about every video. Getting our storm to form here, though, on our European model going into Wednesday night, just like the GFS shows. And then watch as that is going to begin to track up here, the same general track the GFS showed. Good agreement here. Again, as we go into Thursday, that line of storms and severe weather threat, specifically here into the southeast. And then, rainy conditions throughout this general area of the Mid-Atlantic and Kentucky, Tennessee, up through West Virginia going into Thursday. Before, going into Thursday night here on the Euro, we begin, like I said, to get that thumping of snow here into extreme northern New England. And much like the GFS showed, look at this band of heavy snow here on the western side of that low pressure as it really begins to crank up as it pushes into the Great Lakes. So then going into Friday here, this is early Friday morning, late Thursday night, continuing to deal with that heavy band of snow on the northern and western side of this low pressure. And kind of having this banana shape of snow in general. So if you kind of were to draw, a banana on the northern side of this low, those are the areas that are going to see that snow. So again, into Maine before potentially changing over to rain there for most of Maine going into Friday. But again, once we get into Friday, we clear out along the East Coast, again, potentially just temporarily, but we begin to really crank up that northwest flow here into North Carolina, the mountains of North Carolina, I should specify, and then up through West Virginia. And then again, going into Friday afternoon, just like the GFS, look at this other low pressure beginning to form here along the Outer Banks. What that is going to do is continue to deepen as it pulls northward, again, continuing to enhance this northwest flow, especially into West Virginia, down through the Smokies. And this low pressure is going to deepen. And then as we get into Friday night and Saturday morning here on the Euro, look at this. Again, same idea as the GFS, that band of heavy snow, maybe some sleet mixing in on the western side. So again, you can kind of draw the banana shape with the secondary low as well. And the Euro here getting snow in a place like Baltimore, Philadelphia maybe, seeing some of that wintry precipitation. And these are areas that have been really starved of any kind of winter weather this year. So we'll watch for that and maybe even potentially getting that to swing into a place like New York City, who hasn't really seen much snow. But this is quite the output here on our deterministic Euro model going into Saturday. So again, we've still got, about 5-day window here to nail this down, and we'll check the ensembles as well to see if we have ensemble support for this. But this could potentially be an interesting feature. And then that eventually begins to clear out as we go into the start of next week with our Euro model. All right, so let's break down the different threats here. Now let's talk about the severe weather here into the southeast, and then we'll break down snow totals, and we'll look at the ensembles as well for the winter weather into the northeast. All right, so Thursday here, the SPC has given us that 15% discussion, or threat, I should say, for the 4-day period. So Thursday here, Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, down towards Talladega, and then back up towards Macon, being in this general risk here for severe weather. So let's go ahead and look at some of our parameters for this. We'll start by looking at our dew points, and this will really be the main inhibiting factor with this severe weather threat. Compared to a week or so ago when we had that severe weather threat, there was a ton of instability. This time we're going to be lacking a bit in the instability department. Sorry about that. So we'll go ahead and bring this ahead into time. This is Thursday afternoon here. And you see we get dew points into the 60s, working their way up here into this threat area. And that is enough to get the job done. But these are really kind of into the low 60s. So nothing like we have seen before. You really want to get into the mid to higher 60s to really see that severe threat blossom. But we do have instability nonetheless, and that'll push through Thursday with that line of storms. Looking at our wind shear for this event, bring this ahead into time. This is about the same time. This is Thursday afternoon. Again, the wind shear is there for this, especially here into the northern sections of that threat. But that's where we're going to run into some problems, as the wind shears mainly up here while the instability is mainly down here. So where those two can cross is where I think we'll have the best shot of seeing some of that severe weather going into Thursday. So watch out for that. Let's go ahead and look at some of our ensemble members now for the wintry side of this storm. We'll start by looking at our MSLP members. So what this shows is where all of the members think the low pressure and the high pressure will be. And why this is important is it gives us a better look at that secondary low potentially forming and bringing snow into areas of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So we'll watch that here. We'll start with our GFS ensembles. This is the main storm itself. Let me change my color back to red. Sorry about that. This is our main storm right here on Thursday afternoon. So watch as we bring this ahead. Watch the coastline here and see if some of these small little numbers and these blue colors can work their way into the coastal areas. Bring this ahead, going into Thursday night, going into Friday morning, going into Friday afternoon, and then going further into Friday afternoon here, and you see you get a bit of phasing here. So while the original low pressure was here, it's going to potentially begin to phase down here. So these members specifically clustered down here to the south are the ones that are really going to give you the favorable conditions to try to get that secondary band of snow before those begin to deepen and work out. So we'll look at the same map here with our European model. Again, this is the main storm itself, and watch the coastline here to see if we can get some of those members to phase. This is going into Friday afternoon, and again, the Euro does the same thing, although not as far offshore, still getting some of that phasing. So, pick any of these members, and then again, kind of draw that banana shape to the side of it, and those are the areas that would see that snow. Disregard that chance of snow here into the southeast. Not going to happen just because we don't have enough cold air. But I think really once you get from DC upwards, that's who's going to have, I think, just enough cold air to work with the secondary low to potentially produce some snowfall. And then again, that works out going into the beginning of next week. So it's a trend we'll watch. It's a trend that's really just now beginning. So we'll continue to see if we can keep the trend up going into the coming days. But once you start getting closer like this, it is good to see those trends begin to kick in. So looking at snowfall totals here from the system as a whole, again, northern New England here having the best shot at seeing those higher totals, and then as well down here into the Smokies and up to West Virginia in the mountains. Potentially even seeing up here into West Virginia, maybe half a foot of snow wouldn't surprise me, especially at those higher elevations. And then I think 3 to 5 inches is probably a safer bet into the Smokies of Tennessee and North Carolina. Again here, though, look, you see areas in here and into northern New York here. You see some colors increasing here that are different from right here, and that could be because of that secondary low potential. And you also see that here, into northern Virginia, maybe getting that's, burst of snow at the end of this system. So we'll watch for that. We'll have to watch the trends. Again, it's just the start of that trend, so we'll see if it continues. In terms of rainfall, again, those of you that don't see snow, you're going to see rain. So here into the southeast, an inch of rain, maybe 2 inches in areas that kind of get it a little bit harder. And then, half an inch up here to the Ohio River Valley, also possible with this system. All right, so let's touch on the long-range forecast here, looking at the end of January and seeing if this pattern is going to change or not. What I can tell you is I think it's more likely that we change going into the end of January. I don't expect this continual super above normal zonal Pacific flow to continue. So as we bring this map ahead, I want you to watch out west here. You see all these storms continue to move in off the Pacific, and then watch what eventually happens as we move this ahead in time. So this is going through our system this week. Again, you see those blues. Oops, sorry about that. You see those blues deepening here on the East Coast, signaling that storm that we're dealing with going into this weekend. Bring this ahead in time. Again, this train just continues into California. Okay, so now we're going to go, again, about a week out, about a week and a half here. This is about 10 days. And then as we get into 2 weeks or so, look at how this kind of changes. You see the reds building back here into Alaska and the West Coast, signaling maybe the halt of that train of storms into the West Coast. And you then see these blues kind of returning here to the central and eastern United States, signaling cooler, stormier weather in the long range. So we'll watch this. One thing I do want to point out that may become an inhibiting factor here, especially for us in the southeast, and I hate to show this as someone who really wants to see snow long range, but we'll have to watch for this southeast ridge to see if it, continues to nudge its way into the southeast, bringing in warmer Gulf air long range. Of course, this is super far out, so we're just looking for a general pattern right now. We don't have any specifics, but I think it'll be a bit of a battle between cold shots trying to work their way in, as well as that southeast ridge as we get into the end of January. So look at the same thing with the Euro here and the Euro ensembles. Unfortunately, I can't zoom this out on a continental scale, but we can still get the job done with this map. Again, going long range, you see those blues continue to flood in before eventually getting about 2 weeks out from now, so towards January 20th, that general time frame. You see kind of the reds begin to appear back here on the West Coast, signaling maybe that Pacific air will finally come to a bit of a halt, and then some of these blues build in, signaling, again, cooler, stormier weather. But once again, we'll have to watch for the southeast ridge here to see if that is going to try to continue the warm trend here, specifically into the south and eastern half of the country. All right, so that is all I have today. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate you joining me. And again, tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing where everyone's watching from. And let me know if you want to see snow, because here in Charlotte, I would love to see snow. I love the snow. But that might just be me. Anyway, though, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.